So we did a big sale 2 weeks ago, and I had a woman called, and she said, I'm on your website, and I want to order this ammunition, but I'm confused. It's asking me to check this box that says I didn't vote for Joe Biden. And I said, well, what can I help you with? And she said, well, I did vote for Joe Biden. And I said, well, you know, to be honest with you, we'd rather not take your money. And she just kind of said, what? Are you serious? I said, yeah. Did you know that Joe Biden wants to ban the online sale of ammunition? And have you actually read any of Joe Biden's gun control plan? And she said, oh yeah, I mean, I've read it, but you really aren't going to take my money? I said, no, I don't need it. I appreciate the call.
Interesting post on lockdowns. https://tcof9mrqzjw.
Democratic mayor of city of Del Rio, Texas begs President Biden to stop releasing illegal immigrants into his community. https://tcol1f3hoajpk.
Mr. President, my name is Bruno Lozano, Mayor of the City of Del Rio, Texas, and I am pleading and requesting with you to please put a halt to any measures regarding the release of immigrants awaiting court dates into the City of Del Rio and surrounding areas. We do not have the resources available to house and accommodate these migrants within our community. I will have no choice but to use the extreme measure under the emergency declaration as the Mayor of the City of Del Rio, Texas, to refuse the entry of migrants awaiting court dates into the City of Del Rio. If you do send these individuals into our community, we will be forced to make a decision to leave them without resources under these dire circumstances. I am asking to please stop. Please make another plan for this federal issue. If you're going to allow these individuals into our community, I respectfully ask that you provide the means and the supplies necessary to accommodate them safely under these extreme circumstances. Due to the crisis, we cannot provide these supplies. We are asking for supplies, water, and prioritization of equal distribution of electrical power in our community. AEP has given us an update that ERCOT has given the authorization to prioritize Eagle Pass and Del Rio, Texas. We do not have a timestamp as to when we'll be getting power again, and we cannot be guaranteed that it will be consistent. We have been outsourcing dialysis treatments for our in-need persons in our community. We have had to relocate the elderly who are in need of power for oxygen tanks. We are completely and utterly spread thin with resources for our own community. With the extreme weather conditions and icy roads, we are limited with what we can bring into our community. I am in constant communication with other border mayors who have immediate concerns regarding the migrant population in our communities. Our nonprofits, our churches are running thin with resources to provide to our very own citizens. Additionally, we have been burdened with the inadequate communication systems throughout the entire area, which has impacted our ability to respond and coordinate limited resources and distribution. This administration has taken a firm stance on COVID-19 protections for Americans. I am asking you to ensure the health and safety of all of our tax-paying citizens along the border are treated with the same urgent consideration. Releasing the migrant population without any COVID-19 protection protocols is undermining your commitment to the stance against COVID-19. Local resources have been utilizing municipal buildings to not only house the needs of displaced citizens during the inclement weather, but to also facilitate the vaccinations of residents. I cannot mix the migrant population with Del Rio residents that are extremely vulnerable and have been displaced due to the extreme weather that has not improved. We may be a small town that is off of your radar, but we have a community of 50,000 people who need your attention. We are requesting that you please listen and that you please come through. Thank you, Mr. President.
Baffled by justices who want state legislatures to set election rules but never mentions the Constitution. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature. https://tconi0x0y6hmb. Finally, a district court rebukes Trump for something that actually was unconstitutional. https://tcogLG4ERZWHP.
Remove the feds telling property owners they couldn't kick out tenants who didn't pay their rent might be unconstitutional, not Trump. https://tcogLG4ERZWHP.
Buried within the $19 trillion COVID relief bill is a new welfare program that would send no-strings checks to everyone with a child whether or not they ever work. This is a phenomenon observed in trust fund kids as well as welfare noms, but trust fund kids have a cushion.
In this view, people will stay on the dole without working if it is possible to stay on the dole without working. The biggest disincentive to going to work is that you have to go to work sometimes in a crappy job, often with an annoying boss.
People went to work because they had to go to work to support themselves. If you reverse the process and send them mass strings money that enables them to not work, they'll not work.
The concern is that a large subset of recipients will go from 1 worker to 0 workers. We'll have millions of kids growing up in fatherless homes where nobody goes into the labor force.
Conservatives have talked themselves into recreating the horrible social dynamics that led Ronald Reagan and Newt Gingrich to lead the campaign against AFDC in the first place.
If you are CEO of a giant globalist corporation, after all, do you really care that much if there's a bigger or smaller underclass? You just tell your driver to avoid bigger parts of the city. Are the dog nappers the same white supremacists who are beating up Asians in San Francisco? Think web browsing that sub on the regular should make it illegal for you to vote?
Losing money by refusing to sell ammo to Biden voters is really some next level. https://TCOA45FH7W5F.
So we did a big sale 2 weeks ago, and I had a woman called, and she said, I'm on your website and I want to order this ammunition, but I'm confused. It's asking me to check this box that says I didn't vote for Joe Biden. And I said, well, what can I help you with? And she said, well, I did vote for Joe Biden. And no. I said, well, to be honest with you, we'd rather not take your money. And she just kind of said, what? How, are you serious? I said, yeah. Did you know that Joe Biden wants to ban the online sale of ammunition? And have you actually read any of Joe Biden's gun control plan? And she said, oh, yeah, I've read it, but you really aren't going to take my money? I said, no, I don't need it. I appreciate the call.
Gender-neutral potato head pissed of Mark Dice so much he wants to leave America. https://TCOZGJ32.
Breaking: Mark Dice reveals the GDP of the seceded Republican states. https://TCOMIR28BN for MG.
Mark Dice is so mad at Potato Head being gender neutral that he blocked us. https://TCOCQ0NRZNEPP.
Ben Shapiro https://TCOM5AQSQB38S.
https://TCOF88.
Check that account's retweets and tweets unless this is a troll account that has been very well done for months. It seems to be legit.
Q0NHEAD. It's less functional but they look cool.
V8USHV. His hairline is running from him. RN.
H3H3 Productions Ethan Klein workout DVD for sale when?
Console founds admitting you're too dumb to understand how science works to own the lids.
Who could have seen this coming? BLM raked in 90M in donations last year, but angry local chapters say they haven't seen any money. Daily Mail. My thoughts. https://TCOSBB9NC9YSW. Must be willing to be bullied and sexually harassed. Helps if you're willing to cover up the murder of thousands of elderly New Yorkers.
It's almost like there is a personal reason Joe Biden is all of a sudden magically focused on Alzheimer's. It'd say it's white privilege, but we all know it's really liberal privilege.
Between red and blue, between servant and citizen, between our freedom and our fear.
Have Senators Schumer or Gillibrand of New York weighed in on the terrible accusations regarding New York Gov. Andrew Cuomo and the apparent sexual harassment as well as cover-up of the death of thousands of elderly COVID patients in New York. If not, why has the media not pressed this? The credible Cuomo accusations have once again left it unclear when we believe all women and when we don't, and when they accuse Democrats
or women that this administration chronically exemplifies. After the Me Too movement, they did absolutely nothing when it came to sexual harassment. They have always diminished the charges of women. Always, consistently. And they're doing it again. To cheapen or ridicule the pain a woman suffers from a sexual attack is disgusting. Sexist and disgusting. To second guess how a woman should have acted after a sexual attack is sexist and disgusting. It's just insensitive. You don't understand the pain. You don't understand how the system tortures a person who wants to come forward. So
it's almost like we are creating an environment where this will be manipulated for attention, money, or perhaps both, while simultaneously ruining others' lives with no likely consequences to the perpetrators.
There is nothing that won't be cancelled to satisfy the woke mob.
I told you so. The truth about Joe Biden. https://tco5nrq21bvl8.
Lol, this is totally gonna end with Hasbro rolling out a non-binary potato. Was Joe Biden informed?
What happened to outrage about kids in cages? Why is it different with a Democrat in charge? The hypocrisy of the left and the mainstream media knows no bounds. https://tcovdgbn2mrzy.
I wonder why.
It's official. The CDC says we can safely send our kids back to the classroom. The one thing standing in the way of the science, Joe Biden. Our kids are struggling, Mr. President. Enough is enough. We need to reopen our schools. https://tcopipdbi3wmb.
Are we going to see the majority of schools in this country open by April?
That's our goal, that's our objective, that's our plan, John.
And that means some teaching in classrooms. So at least one day a week, hopefully it's more.
He went from being an AB honors roll student to now failing.
I don't want her to have like social anxiety or something like that going forward in life because they were locked down. These are like their developmental years.
112 students at Heritage High School took Algebra 1 the first quarter of 2019. 10 of them failed. From August to October of 2020, reports show there were 130 students enrolled in that same course and 54 failed, a 365% increase.
And they are losing, not just academically, they're losing socially and emotionally.
Low-income kids, as we had suspected, are likely falling farther behind, and we're going to have to do more work to close the gap.
Apparently they just kind of looked at the public school kids and was like, you know what, they're not really that important.
I'm not getting the education I need. I know I would pay more better attention at school in person 5 days a week. Please figure it out.
What these kids lose, they're losing potentially an opportunity to hone what might be their best skill.
Our children are decompensating while we debate how to reopen school. Returning to in-person learning with well-thought-out mitigation strategies, which we have laid out since the fall, is the best prescription for our children.
For every parent that's home watching right now, they're more than a parent. They become the teacher, the coach, the tutor. We cannot leave this generation behind and not give them the education that they deserve.
Democrats say that schools need more money to reopen, but in their bill 95 of the money for schools won't even be spent this year. So when will schools open? https://tcoboyjuanxu7.
We've done 5 COVID bills bipartisan. This is the first one that the Democrats just want to do by themselves. And to get the votes, what are they doing? They're putting in a special project for Nancy Pelosi, $100 million for Silicon Valley Fail Rail project, or a bridge for Schumer. We're watching that the money that's going for schools aren't even being spent. 95% of it won't be spent this year, so will schools even open? You've got more than $60 billion sitting there for schools that were already appropriated. You've got $1 trillion still sitting there that we appropriated that have not gone out. A lot within this bill is a waste or a wish list from the progressives, and I think that's why they're going to have difficulty even making sure all the Democrats vote for it. It's very similar to when Barack Obama came in and they passed that stimulus bill by themselves. And remember what happened at the end of the day a year later. More people thought Elvis was alive than the stimulus created a job. But unfortunately, this is going to do real damage to America, putting this much money out there at a time that it's not smart or surgical to do it.
Coming soon to Congress near you, https://tcobt8c4j6vex. The science proves that kids should be in school. Grades are plummeting, mental illness is soaring, and President Biden thinks in-person instruction once a week is a good enough goal. Unacceptable. https tco7 and c9fr7 wic.
The science proves kids should be in school. I've watched in my own community that 14%, it just came back, of more D's and F's. I just saw the pediatrician in Virginia, the association shows that more than 90% anxiety, depression in these children is doing much more than just leaving them back education-wise. I do not understand why we cannot open the schools. The science says it, and now you've got the President, Joe Biden, thinks opening schools, his goal is one day a week. You cannot allow this to continue.
This is one hell of a piece. What happens when the woke mob runs a college appreciation for the night times for telling the real story inside a battle over race, class, and power at Smith College? https tcobabz5la0z5. Bowing to the mob never works. The mob will just bully you more. This soon-to-be retired chief of police did the fashionable thing and took a knee. Now he's out. https tcovxgawj3j5u. Wow, there goes mtgreenee again with her crazy conspiracy theories about there being two genders. https tcoddpcpdhray. This is Jody Shaw, and she's a hero, a patriot. My guess is that we never voted for the same person, that we are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and that's perfectly fine. She's using her voice to stand for freedom. Smith Surge, thank you. https tcoohob8jwf5x.
Nobody's race should ever be a liability. Haven't we learned anything? Thank you, Jody Shaw. Smith Surge.
Very thankful that Rand Paul is in the Senate. The nominees' non-answers should be disqualifying Rand Paul. Girls HHS nominee Rachel Levine on transgender medicine and https tcouwxjtogfbd.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned. Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes, that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I would look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights and that parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field, and if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine, we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER, but you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back? You give a woman testosterone enough that she grows a beard, you think she's going to go back looking like a woman when you stop the testosterone? You have permanently changed them. Infertility is another problem. None of these drugs have been approved for this. They're all being used off-label. I find it ironic that the left that went nuts over hydroxychloroquine being used possibly for COVID are not alarmed that these hormones are being used off-label. There's no long-term studies. We don't know what happens to them. We do know that there are dozens and dozens of people who've been through this who regret that this happened and a permanent change happened to them. And, you know, if you've ever been around children, 14-year-olds can't make this decision. In the gender dysphoria clinic in England, 10% of the kids are between the ages of 3 and 10. We should be outraged that someone's talking to a 3-year-old about changing their sex. I can't vote for you if you can't.
Thank you so much, Senator Paul. Senator Levine, thank you for answering the question. I will turn to Senator Baldwin.
Yusal Harbinath and Kaufman's Prague Pilgrim. The words smug and superior apply to Stanley's post, which is why there was such a reaction.
At West, except Christians had really high fertility. Woke people have quite low fertility.
Join me and Ray Blanchard, BLANCHARD PhD, at the Jolly Heretic at 7 p.m. UK time, 2 p.m. New York, where we'll discuss what seems to be becoming the major issue of our age, the Great Transition. https://TCOMANPG74AWF https://TCOBCHONCCZAG.
Wayne Esquivo, BLANCHARD PhD. I was concerned I might evoke the same reaction for interviewing someone whose views are so politically incorrect, so perhaps a balance is struck.
For flip's sake, join myself and Ray Blanchard at the Jolly Heretic and our events at 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. New York to discuss the TPU is nakedly suppressing it and not send out notifications going to the channel itself. If you don't find it through the search https://TCOMANPG6MZY5 https://TCOZI4not1 I am on this new thing. I will gradually upload videos that are not there yet. https://TCOF707BZWDD.
If only every Republican were as bold and fearless as mtgreenee, we might actually live in a conservative country. Anthony Sabatini is going to make a great governor of Florida one day. This guy stood against lockdowns from day one and is renaming a major highway after Donald Trump. https://TCOBKBJCO0CNQ.
While I don't know how to be less white, I do know how to drink less Coke.
Guys, I know insulin has gone up 600 since Biden took office, but you have to remember it's 2021. Genetics don't define who you are.
What do you miss most?
I went from standing in line for government cheese to standing on the floor of the US Capitol as congressman. That's only possible in America. https://TCOIN8Z9WQ.
Nancy gets a subway, Schumer gets a bridge, you get 1,400 in lockdowns. The feminists who run around with pink hats glued to their heads are silent as women's rights get completely obliterated under the Equality Act. Where are all the so-called feminists?
I'm raising my boys to be men and I'm darn proud of that. https://DCOGXQE6GFIBH.
I assure you today that privacy is not the only right this so-called Equality Act, this Inequality Act, will take a blow at. As the mom of 4 boys, I am raising my boys to be men, and I am darn proud of that. As a parent, I rely on friends, family, and faith to guide me in raising my children. You know who I don't need in helping me with my parental decisions? I do not need the help of the United States federal government. Congress is replacing mom and dad with bureaucrats. Under H.R. 5, parents who choose not to subject their child to puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, they could have their children removed from their custody. Under this legislation, making that rational decision not to inject your child with these drugs and blockers, which can lead to brain damage, sterilization, and increased risk of cancer, is considered child abuse. Is that really where we've come to? Under this Democrat regime, which controls Congress, the arrogance of the radical left will lead them to try to regulate and control every aspect of your life, including how you gender your children. Is Kamala Harris going to apologize to the girl who will lose her athletic scholarship to the boy who outplays her? Will Joe Biden tell the parents of the girl who gets her skull crushed how fair that is? And will Nancy Pelosi please explain to our daughters why boys pretending to be girls are leering at them in the girls' locker room? When we say the left is unhinged, this is exactly what we are talking about. This is a sad day for women's rights here in the United States of America. It is a disgrace, it is disgusting, and it's downright dangerous. This bill is bad for female athletes. It's bad for doctors and patients. It's bad for teachers, business owners, and for parents who want to raise their children free from government overreach. Democrats see the mass exodus from blue states to red states, and they are desperately trying to expand their destructive policies to the federal government, from which no one who lives in our country can escape. I am proud to stand with the Freedom Caucus today in opposition of this resolution. I am proud to stand with women in the United States of America. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Congressman Roy.
Mr. Potato Head has now been renamed to be gender inclusive. He's now just going to be called Potato Head. When will the activists demand Joe Biden stops use of the "come on man" catchphrase for inclusivity's sake? It should be "come on person."
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
That's it, I'm moving to Saudi Arabia.
The Equality Act is for losers and pedophiles.
Biden bombed Syria the same day they killed Mr. Potato Head. Long live the martyr of our people.
Currently an unpopular opinion on conservative Twitter: people shouldn't be cancelled for mean tweets.
This is amazing news for our district. Congrats to the outstanding team at FLYDPS. CPAC is a valued collaboration of conservatives. Its sponsors, organizers, and volunteers should be commended. I'm grateful CPAC has given me a platform to speak about the negative influences of corporate America on America. Tune into my talk 1:40 p.m. Estate, https://tcopitmpbqzat.